On this Friday night, Rapid Response, retracing the steps of Canada's COVID-19 patients. Where have they been, when, and who else was around?
It's a very challenging virus to be able to contain.
Plus, the plan to help workers and businesses.
We are taking active precautions.
As Canada ramps up testing and the U.S. struggles. The crisis intensifies at the border between Greece and Turkey. The lie luring migrants on a dangerous journey. And remembering the pocket rocket.
Cutting in the rocket's juicy spoon.
How Henri Richard proved his critics wrong and powered forward to become the NHL's biggest champion.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We are watching the spread of the new coronavirus again tonight and the potential impact on you. There are now 54 confirmed and presumptive cases in Canada, including another new case in Alberta and 2 new ones in Ontario. We're also watching that cruise ship stranded off California with 235 Canadians on board. Test kits were airdropped to that ship by helicopter because a man on a previous voyage died of COVID-19. And late this afternoon, the American vice president announced 21 people on board have tested positive. 19 are crew members, but only 46 people of the 3,500 people on board have been tested at this stage. And right now, none of them are going anywhere. Back here in Canada, there is now at least 1 case of community spread in BC, a woman infected with COVID-19 who has no link to travel from a country where there's been an outbreak. BC's public health officer says the woman's every move in the last 2 weeks is now being traced.
We want to know everybody she's been in contact with since she developed symptoms. We go by day. You know, where were you here? How did you get there? We do all of the details. Did you go by bus? Did you take a private car? Those are all things that are being investigated in detail.
She says that rapid, detailed response and lots of testing means the virus is being contained in Canada. Of the 54 confirmed and presumptive cases here now, most are in BC and Ontario, where there are 2 new cases. One is a man in his 20s who was in Italy. The second is a woman in her 60s who got back from Iran. Both are now in self-isolation. Quebec now has a 3rd case, a presumptive one. It's a man who was recently in France, where he believes he caught the virus from someone he knows. And there are 2 presumptive cases in Alberta. One was just announced, a man in his 40s in the Edmonton area. He just got back from the United States. The other case is a Calgary woman in her 50s. She's a former passenger from the Grand Princess cruise ship. She was also a worker at ATB Financial, and now 2 of its branches in Calgary are closed. Testing here in Canada has ramped up much faster than in the U.S. BC and Ontario have their own tests now, and capacity at labs is being increased. The federal government has committed $27 million now to fund coronavirus research. There's also a plan to support Canadians who are in quarantine or self-isolation and unable to work. David Akin in Ottawa has our top story tonight. David?
Well, Donna, public health officials from across Canada knew this day was going to come. The first case of a COVID-19 infection by an individual with no history of travel.
It was not unexpected, certainly something that we are prepared to deal with, and the detailed investigation, the resources that we need to put into that are ongoing right now.
Now, the painstaking medical detective work as BC officials try to retrace what that patient did and where she went for the last 2 weeks.
There are a number of public events. There's a number of places that she's attended. There's her workplace.
But the message from the BC government, the risk remains low, and detailed plans are in place to manage a major COVID-19 related disruption that could last as long as 4 months. The province's pandemic planning covers everything from making sure grocery stores have enough food to rapidly moving healthcare workers to where they are needed.
So we are currently and clearly in the containment phase, but it is our responsibility and the Premier's direction that we have been preparing for a month for a more serious situation as it develops.
BC's pandemic plan, like all provincial pandemic plans, adheres to federal guidelines set out in the Pan-Canadian Pandemic Plan.
The federal government actually provides technical advice and support to provinces to make those decisions, but it is the decision of the jurisdiction.
Meanwhile, the federal government is spending $27 million for 47 different COVID-19 research projects across the country.
It is a significant investment, but it's important to note that if additional resources are required, we are willing to step up and provide those additional resources.
And that money will help Canadian scientists join the international search for a vaccine. Scientists here are also trying to figure out questions like, how long does the virus persist on surfaces or in the air? And those answers could be crucial in the fight to prevent more COVID-19 infections in Canada. Donna?
All right, David Akin in Ottawa, thanks. Financial help is being planned for Canadians who are required to self-isolate or be in quarantine and are unable to work. The federal finance minister is working on that. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stephenson spoke with Bill Morneau. Mercedes, what's he saying?
Donna, Finance Minister Bill Morneau says Canada has the fiscal firepower to deal with the COVID-19 shock, but still he's preparing to shore up the Canadian economy. The Finance Minister promised support for those who could be hardest hit economically, Canadians without paid sick leave and industries that are expected to bear the fallout like travel and the service industry, as well as the oil sector. We asked him just how much the new coronavirus could hurt the economy and how much money the government is expecting to have to spend on health care and those fiscal backstops. The short answer is they don't know. It depends on how bad things will get and therefore how much it will cost. Listen to this.
I really can't give you a scope. The challenge really very much depends on the depth and the duration of this challenge around the coronavirus. It also depends on the geographic spread. And so we will only know that as the facts become available.
Mercedes, what did Morneau say about how this might change the federal budget that's going to be released, we expect, sometime later this month?
Well, Donna, Morneau was cagey on when the budget might come down, but so far there's no expectation that COVID-19 has shifted the traditional timeline that would see a budget in the next few weeks. The finance minister revealed the government will pad the risk adjustment provision in the budget. That's the federal government's contingency fund, a safety for unexpected events like COVID-19. But other than that, COVID-19 spending is expected to be outside of the federal budget rather than included in it. Donna?
All right, Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa, thanks. And you can watch the full interview with the finance minister on Sunday on the West Block right here on Global. In the U.S., the number of cases has jumped past 270 now, and at least 15 people have died. New York City is pleading for more test kits. The health department says it will quickly run out. The U.S. is now also grappling with what to do about people on board that cruise ship that's off the coast of California. We just learned 21 people on board have tested positive. Jackson Prosco has that story.
Off the coast of California, more than 3,500 passengers and crew aboard the Grand Princess are stuck in limbo. 235 Canadians among those now confined to their rooms, including Ian Lancaster Graylish from Toronto.
And they said everything was canceled. All the bars were closed. The restaurants were closed. And we'd be having room service tonight.
The COVID-19 test kits airlifted to the cruise ship Thursday ended up delivering grim news. 19 crew members and 2 passengers on board tested positive after 5 passengers from the ship's previous sailing tested positive and 1 died.
All passengers and crew will be tested for the coronavirus. Those that need to be quarantined will be quarantined. Those that require additional medical attention will receive it.
In the U.S. Capitol, President Donald Trump signed an $8 billion emergency spending bill.
I think we're in great shape.
Before touring the Centers for Disease Control, where he downplayed the risks of coronavirus.
Most of those people are going to be fine. A vast majority are going to be fine.
And claimed to be an expert on the subject.
Every one of these doctors said, how do you know so much about this? Maybe I have a natural ability.
A botched rollout of testing kits has left the U.S. with an unclear picture of how far and wide COVID-19 has spread. The number of infected continues to grow daily. So does the death toll. At this nursing home outside Seattle, where several residents have died, families are demanding answers.
My mother, I got a phone call this morning that she passed at 3:30 in the morning.
Pat Herrick was told her mother Elaine died of natural causes overnight. She wonders if it wasn't the virus that has swept through the care facility.
I'm asking and lobbying to make sure she gets tested. I want her body tested. And I've been told, well, we don't do that. You know, we just have to assume that it's natural causes. And so I'm saying it's not okay.
The U.S. admits it still doesn't have enough coronavirus test kits to meet demand, and that's a real concern. The number of deaths compared to the number of cases identified suggests there are far more cases out there than currently reported. Donna?
All right, Jackson Prosco, thanks. What's happening in Italy is a sign of what this virus can lead to if not contained. Italy recorded its highest daily death toll from COVID-19 today. 49 people in Italy died today of the virus, and the number of deaths in total in Italy is now 197. There are sweeping restrictions on public gatherings there to try to limit the spread. As of tonight, more than 4,600 people have tested positive in Italy. Well, the nightmare is finally over for a group of Canadians quarantined because they were on board the Diamond Princess ship in Japan. More than 100 former cruise ship passengers finally made their way home today. The group spent nearly a month in quarantine, first on board the Diamond Princess and then at a hotel in Cornwall, Ontario, to ensure that they are virus-free. None have developed any symptoms.
I'm so glad we're in Canada, and I'm so glad we're on our way home.
One more flight.
One more flight.
More than 700 other Diamond Princess cruise ship passengers, including 50 Canadians, did test positive for COVID-19. 6 of them have died, though none of them were Canadian. We know you have lots of questions about this virus. We want to help answer them. You can send an email to your questions at globalnews.ca, and our Jeff Semple will consult experts to find the answers. You'll also find extensive information on our website. We have a special page dedicated entirely to the new coronavirus. That's at globalnews.ca/coronavirus. The Toronto teenager who was the subject of an Amber Alert yesterday is now back with his family. Police found the 14-year-old in what they call a disheveled state on a property near Brampton, Ontario, late last night. They say the boy was taken as retribution for his stepbrother's drug debt. Police are still searching for suspects. There is an update in the downing of that Ukraine International Airlines jet over Iran in January. The RCMP is now on the ground involved with Ukraine's criminal investigation. 55 Canadians were among the 176 passengers and crew who were killed. After first denying any responsibility, Iran then admitted its military did fire 2 missiles at the plane. Foreign Affairs Minister François-Philippe Champagne is also in Ukraine. He spoke to the president and foreign minister. He says Canada wants to bring closure, transparency, and justice to the families of the victims.
We are prepared, and we discussed the range of possibility of further steps we could be taking in order to hold Iran to account with respect to its international obligation on the Annex 13.
Champagne also says he pressed the Ukraine government for the airline to compensate victims' families soon. A separate effort is underway to get Iran to compensate families for its role in the downing of the airliner. Migrants desperate and facing danger. Coming up, the growing threats they're facing at the border between Turkey and Greece. Tonight, thousands of refugees and migrants are stuck in a terrible situation. They're caught in the middle of an ugly battle between Turkey and the EU. Turkey says the millions of refugees who fled the war in Syria are not their problem anymore, and they've opened the border to let them leave. Families who left the refugee camps in Turkey are now living outdoors in makeshift camps along a stretch of the border between Turkey and Greece. They're confused and unsure about their next move. And as our Europe Bureau Chief Crystal Gumansing reports, they're being met with what aid agencies are calling violations of human rights.
They are the cries and screams of the desperate. People risking their lives in hopes of reaching Europe. Thousands of migrants headed towards the border between Greece and Turkey after hearing Turkey would no longer stop those trying to cross. A reckless and deadly lie. Ahmet is from Syria. The European soldiers found us and they disconnected our motor, the dinghy's motor, and they pulled us towards the Turkish part of the sea and left us there. A call to the Turkish Coast Guard led to their rescue. Hussein was pulled from a raft Friday. There are children here, and I'm very sorry for them, he says. I do not feel sad for myself. It doesn't make a difference. I will die in Afghanistan or I will die here at sea. Both are the same. Since 2016, Turkey has been paid by the European Union to house millions of refugees fleeing violence in the Middle East and Africa. But last week, after more than 30 Turkish soldiers were killed in airstrikes in Syria, Turkey abandoned the agreement.
Encouraging refugees and migrants to attempt illegal crossing into the European Union is not an acceptable way for Turkey to push for further support of the European Union.
Greece has responded with expanded border patrols. There are unconfirmed reports refugees have been shot at, tear gas has been used, and that Greek police have beaten, robbed, and stripped refugees who have crossed before sending them back. All we hope for now is to go back to our country. We don't want to be humiliated and embarrassed like this. We don't want Europe or Turkey. But for many, Europe remains the goal. As one group is stopped or rescued, more embark on the risky journey. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
Tracking COVID-19, how one country used data to contain an outbreak.
You're watching Global National.
There are critical factors that can help slow and contain a virus like COVID-19. A fast response, testing, and public information are key. In Taiwan, a digital database that tracks its citizens through their cell phones has helped defy the odds and keep infection rates there down, despite Taiwan being very close to the outbreak's epicenter. Here's Heather Urix West.
Using AI, this Canadian company knew the COVID-19 outbreak was coming weeks before the rest of the world. Now it's using another data set to determine what happens next, monitoring the movement of 400 million mobile devices.
We have to be leveraging those tools to stay a step ahead.
It's something Taiwan has had success with. Located just off mainland China, many expected Taiwan to have a high number of COVID-19 cases. But weeks into the epidemic, only a few dozen in Taiwan have become sick.
It had outperformed its expected, outcomes by a lot.
In the early days of the outbreak, the country used its national health insurance database and its customs and immigration database to start creating big data it could use to track the virus. If a person went to a clinic or doctor's office, that information would generate alerts based on the patient's symptoms and travel history. At the borders, those considered low risk were sent a pass via text message allowing them entry. Anyone considered high risk was put into quarantine at home, tracked using their mobile phones to make sure they stayed there. China and South Korea have been using data to track COVID-19 too.
Geolocation data is considered extremely sensitive because it can identify you. For the government, without a warrant, they cannot get access to it. The telecommunications companies cannot sell it. So in China, they don't have those restrictions.
But there could be a way that countries like Canada could harness the power of this 21st century tool without putting personal privacy at risk. Blue Dot's mobile device information is anonymous. The information focuses on aggregate trends without singling out individuals. Still, the company says not all governments are interested in leveraging data this way. In fact, the Canadian company is mostly working with countries other than the one it calls home. Heather Urix West, Global News, Calgary.
From little brother to huge hockey star. Next, the legacy of Henri the Pocket Rocket Richard. There are hockey legends, and then there's Henri Richard. He spent his entire NHL career with the Montreal Canadiens, and tonight his legion of fans are paying tribute to him. Richard died today at the age of 84. He began as the little brother of hockey hero Maurice the Rocket Richard. By the time he hung up his skates, Henri Richard had hoisted the Stanley Cup more times than any other hockey player ever has. Mike Armstrong has his story.
Cutting in, the Rocket shoots and he scores.
Henri Richard grew up watching his big brother. Their father would take him to games.
He shoots and scores.
The Rocket was already a superstar. Stepping out of that shadow would be hard, although their father may have helped.
People used to talk to my father and say, Morris is a great hockey player. What he used to say all the time, he said, wait, he said, I got another one. Little Henry, he said, these would be much better than Morris.
The Rocket was a grizzled veteran in 1955, literally one of the oldest players in the league, when he was joined by his fresh-faced little brother. Henri had similar eyes, a bigger smile, and that massive shadow to step out of.
Hockey's greatest goal scorer, at the age of 34, as dangerous as ever, on a line with Dickie Moore on the left, and the Rocket's kid brother, Pocket Rocket Henri Richard, who made the big team, although he was still eligible for junior hockey. There are those Richards again. Simmons stops the Rocket, and then the Pocket Rocket.
Now, many thought Henri Richard was a publicity stunt. He was too young and too small. He just had that big family name. Even Coach Toe Blake would say he never expected to keep Henri around that first year.
The Rocket gains control.
Well, that year ended with the Stanley Cup.
A Montreal breakaway with the littlest Rocket, passing to Moore, out to the biggest Rocket, and it's 5-1.
The brothers would win 5 championships in a row before Maurice retired.
Henri Richard.
But Henri was just getting started. This is him scoring the cup-winning goal in 1966.
That's Henri Richard going in on left wing.
And this is him scoring the cup-winning goal in 1971.
The tension and fatigue shows in the face of Henri Richard, who tonight let his actions speak louder than his words.
Henri Richard would never score as many goals as his brother, but he was a better all-around player. Henri also played more games, scored more points, and won more cups, 11 to the Rockets' 8. By the time he retired in 1975, he was a legend. On a franchise with so many greats, names like Beliveau, Harvey, Lafleur, Plante, Morenz, and of course the Rocket, it is his little brother who's often called the team's most valuable player of all time.
Henri Richard again for the Habitants. This time he does pass to brother Maurice, and another blistering shot runs the count to 3-0 Montreal.
Henri would often say he was just in the right place at the right time, just one part of great teams. But you can pretty much just write that off as one of those things a great leader would say.
That is Global National for this Friday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Bath, Ontario. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to us. And thanks for watching. Robin Gill will be here at the anchor desk over the weekend, and I will see you back here on Monday. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.